All right, guys, let's get back to work.
Okay. The city manager has promised that it's only going to take 10 minutes.
Oh, he lied to you. He lied. All right, it is now 10 o'clock. I want to get,
Bird.
it's 10:15. Guys, let's set a goal for about 11:15. See how it goes.
Okay.
All right.
You hear?
That's funny.
No, wait a minute, it was 10:15. I want to get out of here and do stuff. All right, we're back, call back to order. We're in work session 1 for the general fund revenue. Mr. City Manager, you want to start us off?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, and the City Council and anybody out there watching this on television. I submitted a memo to you all dated April 10th where we listed, and I'm going to go through that in a little bit. We are pleased to submit for your review and approval a proposed budget for 2020. It reflects the guidance provided by the Council in our strategic plan that was adopted in 2016 and my professional assessment with regard to what is necessary to deliver quality services, which is the theme for us here. The proposed budget is $59,103,700. This represents a growth over 2019's budget of $1,379,800, or 2.4%. The amount includes $108,400 transfer to the Equipment Acquisition and Replacement Fund and $2,945,100 to the 6-year Capital Improvement Program. The Water and Sewer Fund has proposed a budget of $9,198,400, representing a 23.7% increase over 2019. City services are the stalwart of the city of Bowie, and that's why that was one of the main reasons why Carolyn and I chose Bowie in 2012. Providing reliable services has always been what we do. The council recognized this and identified outstanding public service as its core value in the 2016-19 plan. I'd like to, for those people who are out in the audience who may not know or watching on television, here are a quick list of the services we provide in Bowie: animal control, community and communications and outreach, concerts, developmental review and planning, economic development, emergency management. I'd like to put an asterisk by that because we'll talk a lot about that during this process. Green Bowie, leaf collection, mosquito control, park maintenance. We have a 67-person sworn police officers and a police force that does everything but 2 major crimes: murder and rape. We provide recreation services, recycling collection, rental housing and property inspections, small business assistance, snow plowing, special events such as the Bowie Fest and the Memorial Day Parade and other things, stormwater management, street lighting, street, sidewalk, trail maintenance, trash collection twice a week, water and sewer for 7,800 customers, yard waste collection every Wednesday in my neighborhood, once a week, youth and family services, counseling, and some of our recreation facilities, which take up a large amount of our funding, are ball fields, the city gym, the ice arena, our museums, our parks, playground, skate park, and of course, we have the best senior center in the region. I'll talk a little bit about revenue here. The budget is, as presented, reflects no increase in the real property tax rate. As previously discussed, the City Council, the planned increases in city property tax rate was deferred last year in 2019, and it's been deferred for 2020. Now, the planned tax increase, well, unless we're given different guidance, will be included in FY21 budget next year. The budget is, it will be the 10th consecutive year without a real property tax increase. Property tax represents 58% of the general fund budget collected by the city and Bowie's largest revenue category. It should also be noted that the city is experiencing good growth in its accessible tax base. The value of the real property accessible base from 2019 was $7 billion, 5,600,000, and now it's going to be $7,160,725,000, for 2020, so that's a 2.2% increase. This is about half of the 4.1% from the prior year. The increase in real property assessment basis adds $58,000 in revenue over the prior year. The fiscal year 2020 is the third year of the triennial cycle, and these assessments indicate property values continue to recover from the recessions in 2013. Our fund, I'm going to skip along here to speed things up. Our general fund balance is declining. The general fund balance is projected to be $37,598,000 for 2019. In June of 2019, the fund balance enables the city to make up the remaining shortages in revenues and expenditures. That's why I said we do not have a deficit. When we have a deficit spending, you have to borrow the money to balance the budget. The proposed budget for FY 2020 uses $5,894,200 in appropriated fund balance to balance the budget. That would lower the fund balance of $31,703,800 in FY 2020. It is projected to increase to $21,619,000 in 2021 and $7,789,000 in 2022 without any increases or assessments. Of course, we have had some successes in our spending practices, which is useful to us. Expenditures in the city have exceeded the revenues for the last 3 years. This is anticipated to continue and also forecast in budgets for 21 through 25, even with the proposed tax increases in future years. Of course, it would be minimized if the tax increases occurred, but prior decisions of expanding the police force, adding a call center, adding debt to the city using it with the Bowie Ice Arena, funding required for stormwater projects and other general fund, from the general fund, and maintaining excellent depth of service in the cities is one of the reasons why our expenditures are where they are. The budget that was developed with the input of all our department directors and special offices looking at the services we need. But understanding, one, that Bowie is a human capital run organization. 2/3 of the general fund expenditures are for staff, or for the staff necessary to run our organization, and we have 400+ people on standard. The city competes with labor markets throughout the region. The unemployment rate's really low, and there is this extreme competition for high-performing, qualified people. And we've been successful recently, but it's getting more difficult, and so we have to our pay and benefits packages have to be attractive. I'll talk briefly about I'll comment on our debt service. Our debt service is $1,108,100 as it stands, and that's well below the requirement that we need to maintain our AAA bond rating. The capital improvement program, I'm going to talk about that in more detail, project by project next. But here's some of the things we're doing. The Chesapeake Bay TMDL, and that TMDL means the total maximum daily load what we put into the Chesapeake Bay. We also have the Heritage Trail back in the CIP. We've got funding of $438,000 from the state to construct and change our training and build our own EOC. That is the primary purpose. We intend to do that. We are planning improvements to Allen Pond Park, our senior center. We have $150,000 set aside for the golf course. Also, we have also asked having a consultant evaluate the golf course and tell us what it needs to bring it up to top-notch standards. It's obviously in decline, as you all know. But that's in the works, and we'll talk about that in some detail too. Staffing, as staffing goes, the city manager's office added additional hours, and reclassification has been proposed. within the emergency management division, if I can use that term, we want to take that part-time position and make it a full-time position. Additionally, the emergency manager I'm proposing a reclassification of that position from 119 to 121. Readiness, this is a readiness issue. Readiness is something that we can't overdo, because as you all know, if you aren't ready for a situation, then nobody wants to hear why you weren't. So we intend to be ready for any situation that arises, and with all the assets that we have. The Grants Management Office is, we propose to convert the grants manager from that part-time position to a full-time position. That only means adding 0.2 of an FTE, because that position works 4 days a week anyway. But between the grants management operation and the housing and homeless circumstances, we just need to have that person in a full-time role. Under HR, we add the addition of a senior generalist position, which will afford opportunities for people to move up. That is a category, that's not an FTE. But in order to, if our generalists get their certifications, they can get, there's compensation for that, and so we get high performers for $3,855 when they're able to get their certifications. Under communications, the request to expand the communications analyst position from 0.5 to 0.6 is proposed. There are no, in community services, there are no positions to be added. There are some reclassifications, and also in the ice arena, the equipment operator would change from part-time C on the scale at Y02, and this would be added an additional cost of $1,672. There are some reclassifications in the police department that actually were beneficial for the organization, and they are in the communications center, and with adding to the supervisory capacity of our dispatchers and 911 center is what we have. We're also going to change a position to create a crime scene investigator for the police department. They'll be taking one position and transfer and reclassifying it, so there's no new FTE impact. In information technology, we've proposed to add 2 personnel to that organization. The reason being is that even though the mission of IT over the last 12 years has quadrupled the personnel to keep up with it, they haven't had a personnel increase, and so we intend to correct that and put them in a position to move forward with a new technical specialist and network engineer. And as you all know, we have 2 server operations, one here in the building. We have a backup, and the fact that every component of the city is automated. And one could argue that the most critical department I have is IT, because if they fail, then we're shut down. And so we simply can't have that. In the interest of time, we'll move forward. I'll talk about the water sewer fund on page Roman numeral 14. The water and sewer fund represents a total budget of $9,198,000. Rates for the waters and sewer fund for 2020 is proposed at a combined rate of 13.81 per 1,000 gallons. This represents an increase of 10% over the rate from 19. The increase equates to $16.38 per quarter for the average household, and there's estimated 13,000 gallons of water per quarter. There's also a projected rate increase for 15. These increases are necessary because the city water system is a constrained system where growth is limited and consumption is dropping, and of course we have an aging infrastructure that we simply must pay for, and we'll talk about that a little later, the tuberculation problem that exists in some parts of that system. And those projects will be million-dollar projects in this fiscal year, as opposed to smaller ones from last year, and thus the rate increase. I'd like to wrap up my quick discussion here, and thank Mr. Matthews, his deputy, and the whole finance staff for working us through this. You know, the city staff has been working diligently for 3 months to get us to this point. As I developed the budget, there were some constraints, spending constraints, because, you know, we don't want to destroy our fund balance, but we want to utilize it wisely. But we want to also make certain that we don't we continue to deliver quality services. So I think right now we'll let Mr. Matthews take us through the revenue component.
Thank you, Al. Good evening, Mayor, Council, Byron Matthews, Finance Director. On page 33, we'll start on page 33 to 51. Mayor and Council, last year this time when we met, we projected the FY20 budget to generate 52.9 million in revenue, and expenditures were forecasted at 62 million, with a use of the fund balance of 9.1 million. The budget that we bring to you this evening has revenues at 53 million and expenditures at 59 million, which is a use of the fund balance of 5,895,000. Basically a decrease from our projection by 3,257,000. Most of that decrease in revenue was reflected in the rejection of the 3-cent increase proposed for 2019. Our state share revenue increased 500,000, and our other revenues increased by 900,000. So that gave us a difference in the projected revenue of about $324,000. The change in the expenditures were mostly attributed to a recalculation of the debt service, which affected the ice arena. We looked at a lower interest cost for the debt service for FY20 as opposed to the numbers that we used for FY19. So that reduced debt service close to $1 million. The transfer from capital projects was for capital projects and equipment acquisition was scheduled at $4,800,000. The transfer that we're bringing you tonight is only $3,100,000. And the final portion of the change in the expenditures are just the cost over the departments themselves, which we projected last year would be $41,724,000. The projection came in at $41,515,000. The penny on the tax rate for FY 2020 is $769,000. Now I think we can move to page 33 and look at our real property and personal property tax revenue. As you can see on page, top of page 33, the real property and personal property increased by 438,000. That's a 1.4% increase over 19's number. The real property assessment, as Al indicated earlier, will increase 146 million for FY20. Further down on the next page, where we talk about page 34, is just a listing of our special taxing districts. These special taxing districts are fees that we charge to the commercial part of the stormwater management side, and you can see the different assessments based on the property values and the rates that we're charging. On page 35, we have the business taxes, which is hotel, motel taxes, and licensing and permits. Our licensing and permits are up 84% over FY19, largely due to street and storm drain permits. On page 36, lists basically our federal and state grants. No real changes there. Page 37 deals with our state shared revenues. Our state shared revenues are up 7%. Included in the state share revenues, as you can tell, income tax, mission and amusement tax, motor vehicle taxes, police protection, and financial corporation tax. Income tax revenue is up 2.12%. The amusement tax is up 8.3%, and motor vehicle tax is up 34%, and that was due to legislation earlier this year. Police protection is basically.
Can I stop there and ask you a couple of questions, if I can?
Sure.
I think maybe quicker to do it as we go along. I have a question on back on 33. We had the Maryland Science and Tech stormwater. The numbers were way down for this year. Is there an issue there? We're at 82,000.
Maryland Science and Tech, it's going to be $125,000 of income projected for FY20.
Yes, but but for the current year, we have 82.
Right.
As a revised. Is there an issue there, or is it?
Well, no, it's just the way the revenue comes in based off the assessed value of the property. There are times when the taxpayer will ask for an appraisal correction from the state. Sometimes it's given, sometimes it's not. So that will cause some fluctuations in what we actually receive as revenue.
Okay. All right, thank you. And on the same page, there's the homestead tax credit. Given the way property values have been increasing, we've not yet had that problem, correct? That's not.
That's true.
Okay, good. And we don't foresee that for 2020, correct?
No.
Excellent. And on, let's see, the same thing on the, now on page 35, the hotel motel tax. Does that reflect an increase for the new hotel at Melford?
That's correct, sir. Along with the increases that we would normally see on a trend basis.
Okay, because it's only like a 10,000. So I guess, but we're getting some this year already, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay.
And in addition to that, what I'm seeing is that the increase is actually being split between the old Marriott and the new Marriott.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. Interesting. All right. And, all right, okay, that's good for me. Thank you.
Okay. At the bottom of page 37, grants and other local units. That's pretty stagnant. We have county grants and landfill and support from MNCPPC for Allen Pond. Yes.
Quick question for you on that. What obligation do we have as a result of accepting that money from MNCP on that?
To my understanding, there's no obligation. This is their contribution to the city for that pond, for the park being used the way it's being used by people outside the incorporated area of the city.
Okay, so there's no encumbrances that we have to worry about, that we can't charge different rates or anything like that?
No.
Excellent, very good. Quick question on the motor fuel vehicle registration tax.
That's okay.
A little bit further up, we have 2.4 million for that. That indicates that we have to spend it on roads, but our road expenditures are about 1.8.
Yeah, but we do have other costs tied to the street department. What you see for streets is just the actual contractual service for repairing the roads. But we do have manpower, we do have materials, supplies, and office equipment that has to be maintained, and that's part of the cost.
Excellent.
For the streets.
Perfect. Thank you.
On page 38, we have our charges for services, which we're showing a 2.7 increase over FY19. Our fees and fines are down by 5.5%, and that's basically due to the cable TV revenue. We're estimating that that's going to be a little lower this year based off this year's activity. And last but not least is just our other revenues, which are sources of interest income, our rentals for our particular properties, donations, claims and reimbursements. We're looking at a increase of about 60% there, $773,000. Page 40 indicates the appropriated fund balance. We're requesting $5,894,200. It shows the central support that received from the Water and Sewer Fund. So total revenues will be $59,103,700. The next page is, Council, on page 41 deals with the city rental and user fees. Again, staff has reviewed these fees. There are some changes to the fees. If you have any questions, I will attempt to answer them. I think Ms. Hines is here and she could focus you in more on those. Page 48 begins the permits and other fees. They too are looked at on an annual basis, and there are increases to those as well when needed. And that will bring us to the end of the general fund revenues. If you have any other questions, I will be more than happy to entertain them.
Any questions will go around?
Sure.
Yes, real quick, for Ms. Hines. Are there any substantive changes to the user fees this year?
I'm sorry.
Any significant ones?
I couldn't hear you, sir.
Oh, this was for Ms. Hines. I apologize. Well, were there any substantive changes, major ones, to the user fees this year?
She didn't hear you, Councilman, just that.
Is your speaker on?
Oh, sorry.
If you just give me a minute.
Thanks
And
for
I'm
joining
sorry, I
us
don't-
on a late night, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't have all the detail. There were some adjustments in the way we were doing gymnasium fees to require payments when reservations were made instead of collecting it later.
Okay.
And I can get you the changes if you'd like on that one. Also, I believe in our athletic special events, there were some modifications.
Okay.
The user fees are not. At the gymnasium, we did remove the membership fees for non-residents. We used to have non-resident membership fees for folks that lived, had a Bowie mailing address but were not residents, and we took that out this year. Meeting rooms didn't change. I don't think concession stands did. I believe, again, I apologize, I debated
That's okay.
bringing that whole detailed sheet with me. There may be some minor ones, but I can get you a copy of all the changes that were made.
We can also review it again when we're doing community services explicitly as well.
Yeah.
We can table it till then. I appreciate it, though.
While we're on the same subject, and something that I want to put in people's bonnet, on the gym fees, we currently have a resident and non-resident fee structure for nonprofit athletic organizations and athletic special events, where we have a resident fee, and then we have a non-resident as well. When you take a look at the changes, when you kind of line those out for whenever we come to it again in this process, could we take a look at what the implications would be for eliminating the non-resident fees? That is to say that the only usage would be available to lease out to our to residents. And given the fact that we seem to be a little oversubscribed, and we're talking about a shortage of gym space, I'd like to see what it would look like if we did not, offer that service to non-residents.
We can do that, and that was the reason we did remove that one line item from there to address that concern. Sorry, we were not. That was what we did. We were looking at that, and that is one of the reasons we addressed that one resident, the drop-in resident kind of concept. And I think what you'll find, though, is that most of the non-resident is used when residents don't want them. It's during the summer with down season, for example, not during the peak athletic seasons.
Okay.
But we can get you that.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and I like this move towards just the residents for the actual boundary residents, and I would even suggest that maybe we ought to ensure that when people are playing there, for even if they're playing on a team, that maybe all team members have to have a gym card or a visitor pass that they could have for that practice, so that we are maintaining that that dichotomy between the taxpayers and the non-taxpayers. I think that would be a good thing to expand. The couple other questions. This is unrelated to the fees, but back on page 39, traffic infraction speed camera program. I'm not sure, maybe it's something for a different evening, but the possibility of a speed camera over near the Tulip Grove Elementary on Tulip Grove. When we talk about that, perhaps later in the process.
And we can talk about that when the police chief comes up.
Okay, that'd be great. So give them a heads up on that. And then there was the cable franchise fee. Have we any concerns about the risk of the recent FCC activities and this revenue stream?
Well, we are concerned a bit about the regulation that stipulates that cable franchise organizations could provide in-kind services, or rather than give us the cash. That's we're still trying to work out. Also, there's a bit of a decrease in the use of cable TV with the other television, Prime, Netflix, and all those, Amazon, and all those guys that are out there. So, but that's the one thing that concerns us, that they want to be able to, instead of giving us the money, install something and we forego the cash, and we rather have the money.
Yeah, cash is good.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regard to the non-residents, Ms. Hines, versus the residents, can you give me kind of like a feeling on what the percentage is? Like, is this a problem? I mean, do we get a lot of non-residents?
Well, we had that category of non-resident but Bowie mailing addresses, and the answer is yes. There's a large number of those memberships currently. So we will be eliminating those memberships,
So then-
which will drop the revenue from those memberships, but we will pick some of that back up because some of them will still come in as guests with a resident member because they're still allowed to come in that way.
So, I mean, but my question is related to the fact, like non-residents, we have residents and then we have non-residents. And so the fee for the non-residents is higher than the residents.
That's correct.
And also, you know, we've been talking about space limitations.
Yes.
So with the non-residents, is this the problem for what's having the space limitations?
Well-
I'm trying to find out, do we have a lot of non-residents that are taking up space the residents should be using?
If we're talking about the open gym time, the answer would be yes. There's probably a fair number of non-residents that are in there during our open gym times, yes, which is what we're trying to decrease by dropping that category. When it comes to the team rentals, and one of the things I made a note to provide to you is a list of all of the groups that are considered resident groups that are currently renting space in the gym, and the groups that are considered non-residents.
Okay.
So we can show that to you, and we'll show you the number of hours that each one reserves as well.
Okay, so basically, the only time that if I'm hearing you correctly, the only problem is at the gym for open gym with the non-residents and nowhere else.
Well, no, I mean, I wouldn't say that in terms of if we had more time in the gym for people to reserve practice time for their teams, they would continue to rent more hours from us.
Right, but does this apply throughout the other sports? For example, you mentioned the problem that we're talking about now occurs during open gym time. Does this occur during any time with baseball? Does this occur with any time with sports like lacrosse, with soccer? Is it only specific to the open gym time?
I would say that's primarily because those are outdoor sports and we have a far larger number of outdoor fields available for use. So it is much less of a problem when you're talking about using your field space than it is the gymnasium space where we only have, 3 courts really, inside courts. But we have Nick, help me out, 100 and some.
We have 123 athletic fields in the community between City of Bowie, Maryland National Paddle Park, Planning, and Board of Education. We have a significant inventory of athletic fields in our community.
Do we have the same problem with ice?
Do we have the same problem with ice? Is that your question?
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's, I think, why we're building 2 sheets of ice internally at the new ice arena, so that there can be more rental available on the ice.
But currently, do we have a problem with non-residents and residents competing for ice? That's a different question I'm asking.
I would say the answer is probably yes. Again, you have to look at what do you consider a resident group and what do you not consider to be a resident group. And we did provide some of that information a while back. So it's, is it a 20%, a 50%, a 60%, a 70%, an 80%? You're not going to get a pure user group of 100% Bowie residents.
Okay. All right, thank you.
A quick question, follow-up on, back on the fees. Youth Services Bureau, I see we've got our residents and non-residents there as well. Can you, when you do the outlook on the other stuff, could you kind of outline how much of the services we're providing are to non-residents? I know we're not charging what the actual rates are or the actual costs would be, but I'd like to know what the kind of what the breakout between actual city residents and non-residents.
Yes, we can provide that to you.
Excellent, thank you.
Capital Improvement Plan 187?
Actually, we'll go to 189 to start that.
I'm sorry?
189.
189, yeah, okay.
All right. So I'd like to, for those who may not be aware out and listening to us, a description of the capital improvement program is as follows. The capital improvement program, which is called the CIP, is a 6-year plan, which the council adopts in the form of a resolution authorized improvement or acquisition projects. Projects listed in the capital improvement program are discussed at one of the first budget work sessions in April of each year. If the council approves the projects and concept for long-range planning, it is retained in the CIP and is authorized. Funding requirements for the current budget year are then included into the operating budget of the general fund and the capital projects fund or the water sewer fund, depending on the circumstances. The necessary funding is appropriated via the budget ordinance. That's, for those who don't know, that's what that plan does. Let's go to page 193 and start with the first project. The first project listed is land acquisition. The funding has been identified for acquisition of open space areas in and around the city. The amount of available for fiscal year 2020 is provided by the prior year transfer from the general fund, $11,700, and the current year transfer to the general fund, $13,500, and the state program open space grants of $737,000. So therefore, if you look on page 104 and you look at the first chart there, you'll see that the annual transfer of $762,800 is the total amount of money that's available for land acquisition. I must say, presently, we do not have any prospects for that, but we're looking, and just in case something comes up. Any questions on that?
The one-time 737 coming from the state, was there any particular reason for that this year? I was just curious.
We receive annual funding from the state for our program Open Space. That number represents a accumulation of funding over the years that we have not spent.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So, well, any other questions? We'll move on to the signature.
Go.
Senior Center, page 195. This page, it provides for various equipment, systems, facilities upgrades. The FY 2019 included funding for significant HVAC improvements, as well as counter and cabinet replacement. FY 2020 includes funding for restroom renovations. If you move to page 196, you look at the top chart, you'll see that we are in progress with the improvements for 19, and the restroom renovations are scheduled for 20 with the amount of $237,200. That's a simple maintenance and upkeep of the building. The next project is the Kent Hill Center. We're proposing an amount of $60,000 for that. This facility is the home for the city's Bowie's Youth and Family Services, a cable TV studio. In addition, Comcast, Greater Bowie Chamber of Commerce, Bowie Boys and Girls Club, and other organizations have offices in this facility, and the facility provides public meeting place and during the evenings. In FY 2020, design and engineering services will be conducted for HVAC controls. And in FY 2021, HVAC equipment will be placed in various units. If you look to page 198 and you look at the chart, you'll see that we have scheduled design and engineering services for HVAC controls, which I've learned since I've been here a whole lot more about HVAC than I ever wanted to learn. The controls are as important a component of the maintenance as anything else. We have a controls organization, and we have HVAC repair, and this year we synchronized those, and we want to make sure we've got that figured out over Kent Hill too. As you know, Kent Hill's an old building, but we're going to be the numerical nomenclature there is are the identifiers of the particular pieces of equipment that will be affected, and also we intend to repave the front parking lot. Basic upkeep and maintenance of one of our facilities. If you go to page 199, we've got the new guy on the block here, which is the Emergency Operations Center. The purpose of this project is to design and build an operations center at City Hall where management decisions are made and coordinated responses are orchestrated related to an emergency incident or disaster. It will be equipped to provide staff support to key city Bowie decision makers in coordination with guidance in the prevention, preparedness, response, mitigation, and recovery phases of any incident that threatens the safety, security, and operation of city function. The EOC will provide staff with secure location, with adequate communications, I think more than adequate, and technical for command and control of any disaster, from a active shooter to a snowstorm and all the other disasters that come about. I'd like to point out while I'm here, in the last 2.5 years, the city staff, we made great strides in getting city staff trained in the incident management components instruction modules listed, otherwise called NIMS. We have a really large component of our city trained in that, especially all of our leaders, so that the incident management component will be, we can be flawless and educated. And by the way, I went through all of them myself, and they're really hard courses. If you look to page 200, you'll see 2020 there, their equipment costs, $256,200. Professional integration services, $77,300. Direct project cost, $15,500. General administration costs, $6,200. And customer support, $33,200. Contingencies, $50,000. These are monies that we got from the state. And this is a project that will be managed by the director of our emergency management operation, and with a junior partner being the police department. But this is technically a public safety project. Any questions on that?
Quick one, Mr. City Manager. So this is related to managing decisions, coordinating responses related to emergency incidents and disasters. Yeah. What are we doing now? Why is that inadequate? And what's the equipment for? What's the equipment we're purchasing for this?
Well, currently, we use our training center as as the tactical operation, emergency operations center. What we endeavor to do now is, and that's set up, that is barely adequate, but we have the funding because of the circumstances in our country today. We want to move that. We want to convert our training center in the police department to an emergency operations center, one that co-locates our emergency management with our police department, which are our primary responders to any issues. And that also puts us in a position that when we activate the EOC, we will have every piece of communications equipment, computer systems, automation that we would need to protect the 60,000 people in this city, and to manage whatever circumstances come, such as I mentioned, some of us might remember Hurricane Isabella that came through in '01, or tornadoes that hit the College Park area in '01 and hit La Plata, or a 27-inch snowstorm. And all those things require a coordinated management effort for us to be effective. And so what we have is inadequate, and we were fortunate enough to get $400,000 to correct ourselves.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay, no other questions on that. The Hormel House.
Dr. Trout?
Sorry?
Dr. Trout.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the Emergency Operations Center, when we did I believe it was the mid-year budget review, I asked that we do a tabletop. Would this be the particular place where we'd be looking at doing a tabletop, or we're going to put that somewhere else at a further discussion?
It could be a location we can do it.
Because normally we do that under objectives and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Okay. So could we put that as an objective to follow through? That's just a carryover from what was done about a couple of months ago when we went through the the mid-year.
Well, we can, if we haven't already, we can certainly add that as an objective to the emergency management.
Well, I wanted to get the objective to do another tabletop exercise. We did a tabletop exercise in 2018, and it was on dams. There's 3 dams in the city of Bowie, and the dam that's closest to this facility is the one we said we had a water main break. So we did a tabletop exercise on that. And I had asked that we do a tabletop exercise on another area, of which the affirmative was given at the budget review, and I'm just making sure it's passed on.
Makes sense.
Okay? And the other question I had was, with regard to the $438,400, do we have a ham radio included in that? Because you're absolutely right. With the EOC that we have upstairs on the 2nd floor, it's a temporary EOC. But one of the things that a lot of the EOCs they recommend is that you do have a ham radio in the event that you have a disaster, and I know that Laurel has one.
Well, sir, you know, I remember from reading Popular Science and Popular Mechanics when I was a kid about those long-range ham radios. They're very effective. But we do intend to purchase one using the operating budget. And
Right, just one. That's all we need is one.
That's currently what we get.
Right.
That isn't the plan, but not with that money.
We have already talked about the Hartville House, the radio and television.
Just wanted to make sure we get that included.
I'll tell you the story about the radio museum.
In the EOC, since we're redoing the EOC.
And in alignment with that, also, have we considered satellite radios, which are also used in emergency operations as well?
We have 2 of those already.
Yeah, we just don't have a ham radio.
Okay. Move on.
All right, then, the Hartmill House, there is no impact. That is not a...
No change?
No money for this year. The next one would be the police dispatch system. Well, this project is nearly complete. However, this is in the budget because we are still expending monies associated with it as we close out the project. But the reality is the police dispatch system is set up, is operational, and we're almost full up on our call takers too. For those who are unaware, when I got here 2.5 years ago, we were simply a call station, but we did not dispatch our own people. Since then, we've transitioned from that to a dispatch, so now we're on our 911 operation, and so the call takers had to, the truth changed for them. You know, what the standards were when they got the job, the standards changed. Now they had to become somebody else, a more proficient 911 operator, which everybody could do. But some people went off and did other things, and then we hired other people. But most of our people made a good transition, and so we are dispatching our own people. We are not relying on Prince George's County, and it was rather seamless. That was also, as I mentioned, the IT workload burden. In credit to our IT director and his team, 13-person team, they absorbed the dispatch operation into the automation systems that we have, and have run it for 1.5 years, 2 years now, with only 1 or 2 glitches that were minimal, but without any additional people and that sort of thing. So but this is still an ongoing project. We expect it to be complete, and you won't see it next year.
Dr. Trout?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the dispatch systems now, there is new technology. I know when I visited the dispatch center, the 911 call center and dispatch center over at Melford, they could not tell if you were calling from a cell phone where you were. And we've had instances where they've sent somebody to someplace in Cheverly, and actually the address was an address that was in Baltimore, Maryland.
Right.
We do have that technology now.
I believe we have the ability to discern the location of a cell 911 operator, but I'll verify that.
Right. So I just want to make sure that we are taking advantage of the new technology that is available.
Okay then.
Gymnasium.
So, the next would be our gymnasium. Of course, our gymnasium was opened in 2001. It has steadily increased its program scope and number of participants. Over 250,000 patrons are expected to visit this site this year. In FY 2020, the 2 HVAC recirculation pumps will be replaced, and the funds will be allocated for HVAC engineering to replace the building's HVAC systems and controls in 2021. That's an $84,000 expenditure. If you look at page 206, you'll see in the chart here that we're going to replace the recirculating pumps for $12,000, the HVAC engineering control design for $30,000, replacement of 4 court divisors, divider curtains, and curtain motors. As you know, ours did a lot of work over there, so that's another $42,000. But any questions about the gymnasium project?
Questions, Jim? Welcome Center.
Welcome Center is
That's my kind of number.
there's no money assigned to it, so we'll pass on that. The genealogy library is in the same situation. The next would be page 211, which is energy efficiency improvements. This project provides for the development and implementation of energy efficiency improvements on the city facilities or lands. The study was completed evaluating the feasibility of installing renewable energy technologies on city-owned facilities. A priority list of future projects was established. This will be an ongoing project that satisfies Goal 6 of Goal 6 Strategy 1 of the city's energy efficiency and conservation strategy. If you look at page 211, you'll see that there's an MEA grant match of $4,000, and where we had gotten $16,000 for it, and we intend to upgrade the lighting systems to LED in the vicinity, in the senior center and around it. And that's our effort for this year. If there are no questions about that, I'll move forward to...
Actually, a quick one. Probably not directly related to energy efficiency, but do we have any plan for EV readiness projects at existing city facilities?
Did you say EV readiness?
Yeah, electric vehicle readiness, electric vehicle charging stations and so on.
Currently, no. We don't have any plans for that. We only have one electric vehicle I'm aware of. That's the little white vehicle in the back. Mm-hmm. And under the circumstances, that was really low on the priority list. Mm-hmm. You all have a prerogative to add it if you like, but we did not plan for that.
Gotcha. I'm guessing that it would be a little bit of a disruption to throw that into 2020, but if we could have staff take a look at what the costs are of installing electric vehicle charging stations and other EV readiness related technologies, just to get a sense of what the costs are. I'd like to see maybe see some of those thrown into the beyond portion of the budget, or budgeted in future years down the road. At least have us started thinking about it now. I appreciate that.
We'll research that and have that for you within a couple of weeks. One of the things that we have an awful lot of vehicles that we use to provide this extraordinary amount of services to our people. And as we go through the process, we look at the process of replacing vehicles. It should be noted that a gas-operated vehicle is going to be $8,000–9,000 cheaper than an electric vehicle today, and maybe that'll change in the future. And of course we always have to consider cost, and it'd be a great thing to do. But if we did that 4 times, we would spend $40,000 more than we needed to. But anyway, I just want to understand.
Is that in purchasing costs or maintenance costs?
The purchase cost price.
Okay.
To buy a vehicle, a pickup truck that can do what we want, that has electric capability, it's going to be cost prohibitive. Even just to go from a gas engine to a hybrid is significantly more expensive than what we could have spent. Now, if it's a desire to put that sort of conservation of that sort over cost, then we can certainly do that. But right now, we're sort of going for the best deal with the best existing contract that either the state or one of the counties that we can get in on to replace our vehicles as they wear out. And we have a lot of them because we do so much. For example, I'm not talking about, but we have 18 trash trucks. We have That's an incredible amount of work. We have too many pickup trucks to name, but we need them all because we're all over Bowie doing something for somebody. You know, you put it out to the curb and we make it disappear. That's what happens in Bowie. That's why people like to live here. So, but anyway, that's just something I wanted to bring up about. We'll certainly look into those questions for you.
I appreciate that, and I'll definitely want to follow up on that on equipment and acquisition later on. Thank you.
Okay, good. So,
Pardon me if I may, just want to follow up on this, on the same subject. I think there are really two issues. One is EV readiness for consumers and, you know, for residents who arrive at a city destination. And I think there are a number of options out there. I know that there's one, I think it's Sema Connect that's here in Bowie alone. I mean, they're one of the providers that provides that type of infrastructure that can provide charging opportunities at different locations. I think that's one thing that we ought to consider. And some of those can be done in either cost neutral, revenue neutral, paradigms. I'm not sure we need to be necessarily a cost, zero. I don't know that that's the answer, but I think there is some revenue source for that. And the other part is, you're right. I don't think we're anywhere near the point where we're going to see any trucks, heavy duty type vehicles that would be viable under electric and the like. That type of equipment's not out there. But I do think there are some opportunities for vehicles such as the one we already have, which is, I think, quite useful around about town. That might be worth looking into. Even well, there may be some number of options. I'm sure you'll come up with some great ones on that. But it's, I think, a good opportunity. Thank you.
So, street resurfacing.
Before we move on, this came up at a previous council meeting where we talked about LED lighting for streetlights.
Yes.
And it's my understanding that there's already a predetermined rate from BGE,
yes,
and so we would not have any cost savings. But I think it's worth the conversation with BGE to see if there would be a prorated rate at a different rate, since the LED lights would use different amount of energy.
Okay.
Item next.
Yes. You got make a note of these. Okay. So. In the street resurfacing, we currently maintain 192 miles of streets, and we do we strive to keep those streets in good condition. We use different standards on 1.5 inch on some streets and a 2-inch layer on others, depending on usage, which is the standard public works procedure. We plan to spend $1.8 million this year. If you look at 214, you'll see that we're planning to spend $1,686,800 on resurfacing streets. Northridge paver replacement scheduled for Fletcherstown Road and Quatrain Place, Hillmead Road and Quick Fox Lane, and that's going to cost us $140,000. So those are our purposes, and we plan, as you can see, we plan to do very similar things for the next 3 years. Any questions on that?
Real quick. I've been getting some comments from residents on general street resurfacing that a couple of places in the last few months were resurfaced that residents thought probably didn't necessarily warrant it yet, that the roads maybe not had been in that bad a condition before they were resurfaced. It's not common to get, but I know Mr. Stefanos is here. Thanks for joining us late. How are we currently selecting the roads that are being resurfaced? Is it on a fixed schedule? Are we evaluating these at all before resurfacing them?
Sorry. We do. About this time, about March each year, the street list has gone through. Those that are anticipated to be due are inspected, and that's where the list comes from. So yes, it is an annual process.
Okay. What's the current criteria for determining that a street is in fact ready to be repaved?
So only, time is time will say, hey, let's look at those streets, and then the physical condition of the street, how poor of a condition it is, how many cracks there are, et cetera.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
Okay.
Could I have a quick follow-up on that? Mr. Stefanos, could you send me a list, because I get from time to time people who ask, is my street on the list? Could you share with me the that list that we're working against?
Right now, the list that we have right now that's planned for 2020 is tentative because the value of how much we're going to pay for the asphalt may,
you bet,
move the line up or down. So I could share that with you, understanding that it's still tentative until we actually contract.
That'd be perfectly fine. Thanks, sir.
Item next.
All right. Next would be
Sediment control.
Sediment control over in Melford. Excuse me. We anticipate that the pond A over there will need to be maintained in 2100, and the estimate cost is $9,518,254. If you go to page 216, you'll see that what we do is we are accumulating monies in this account so that when the time comes, we will have enough money in 2100 to conduct the dredging and efficiently manage this particular stormwater pond. The same thing is for the Bowie Town Center, Centennial Park. There's the stormwater management pond will need to be cleaned in 2115, and so we're reserving $47,000 this year in an accumulation fund for this. Of course, both of these are special tax. We're talking about special taxing districts where the monies are collected to do this work. In sediment control, also in High Bridge. In this particular instance, we are not taking out any money because our reserves, if you look at page 2020, we have $182,700 in reserve, so we have no need, but we are planning for it. In the sediment control for Gateway Center, there's $26,000 being set aside for work that's going to be needed in 2026, and as you can see, we are accumulating that money there, which is a really good financial management procedures. A lot of cities don't do this and save like we do for events. Sediment control in Covington, we have set aside $24,000 for maintenance of the stormwater facility there. They'll be doing in the FY 2102.
May I interrupt you for a quick question? Back on 221, we have a life cycle there of about 15 years or so for 16 years for the Gateway Center, and the other one we've got basically an 80-year outlook for that. Can you speak to just a little bit about what's happening at Gateway that we find ourselves in such a short turnaround cycle?
The design of the pond is a much shallower pond than the other ponds, so it does require dredging more frequently. And it's a pond that actually collects quite a lot of sediment. So we will, survey it before we actually schedule that dredging. But the rate that we have seen of sediment accumulation in there would just require that frequency.
So is that part of the design process? Is that something that we could review for example, we have the facilities that are going in the recently annexed areas to ensure that we've got ponds that have a 100-year life cycle as opposed to a 10-year.
Absolutely. I mean, the ponds in Melford were built quite a while ago, and those sort of 100-year ponds. And the ones, the large pond that's being considered for South Lake is also one of, that sort of facility. So, they would definitely be long ways in between dredgings, yeah.
Okay, great. Back on 219, we had a no cost on that one, but in the description area, we say we're going to take care of the spatter dock growth. Is that just an operating cost, or is that just a carryover from a prior year or something?
Yeah. That was, you know, that was one of the ponds that we did a survey on from the prior year, and the survey found that that invasive species was, you know, taking up a lot of the space of the pond, so that's why it was recommended. And because we, you know, we fund the survey from this account, that's why we showed it, you know, showed the results here.
But what about the work to actually remove it?
We'll fund it from this because this is a special tax district. We use the money from the special tax district for that work.
Okay. But we don't foresee doing it immediately because it's not in the budget?
I'm going to have to get back to you. I think it may have actually already been done, but
All right.
I'll get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Stormwater management, 220.
Stormwater management, there's no money in this account this year. We intend to, there were some budget savings that we had to use, and we took advantage of this. We'll start up again next year with the neighborhood drainage solutions for $54,000, but that was a bit of a budget cut there.
Public Works Facility, 227.
Excuse me,
Oh.
Mayor. Just to follow up on that question, on page 147 for High Bridge, the work that George was referring to, the operating cost for that study is there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Public
So-
Works, 227.
Yeah, we're on 227 here. As you can see, in 2021, we plan to pick up the stormwater management maintenance operation, but we took it out this particular year. The next project is the Public Works main facility. We zeroed that out too as a result of my intent to utilize as little of the fund balance as possible. This involves some underground diesel tanks that should be replaced, but we're going to put that off for 2 years, to 2022 most likely. We have a salt replacement of building replacement, a vehicle storage building and parking scheduled for 2021, and then we'll reschedule the diesel replacement for 2022, barring any emergencies. Streets and Utilities Building, we scheduled $158,000 there to, if you look at page 230, for security and safety improvements to the Utilities Division, Vehicle Bay. You all know we had a vandalism experience last year, and so we are endeavoring to improve our security in Public Works, and that will benefit from it, and that's just a necessary thing that we're doing. Facilities maintenance that we're planning to do, facilities preventive maintenance. Normally, if you look at page 2032, we would put $500,000 in that account. We did not. There are some things we're going to do from the fund balance back on page 231, which is we're going to be spending money at the gymnasium in Allen Pond, but we're covering that under CIP. Is that accurate? But we did not put the $566,200 in the budget so that we would not, we could minimize the how much we take from the fund balance. And we'll watch this closely. Of course, we still have monies in the operating funds for the emergency maintenance, and if anything else comes up, we'll come back to you. But right now, that is a value engineering type savings, if I can use that term. The Chesapeake Bay project. On December 29th, 2010, the U.S. Environmental Protective Agency established the Chesapeake Bay total maximum daily load, and the TMDL is a comprehensive pollution diet to restore clean water to the Chesapeake Bay and the region's streams, creeks, and rivers. TMDL is a calculation of the maximum amount of pollution that a body of water can receive and still meet state water standards. Now, we have some mandates associated with that. If you turn to page 236, what we intend to do in 2020 is the construction of Woodhaven Drive Stormwater Management, Stormwater Pond R20. That'll cost $718,500. The construction of Saddlebrook Stream Restoration, including pipe crossing, which is also will be $750,000 for a total of $1,468,000. Proceed. You have questions, sir?
Yes, thank you. I noted that for this Chesapeake Bay requirements, some of these are stormwater management ponds, I think, that have special taxing districts associated with them. Is there an ability to use those funds as opposed to using kind of general revenues to pay for this?
We're not aware that these are special taxing districts, but George, are you familiar with that?
Because I think the Collington Station, right? And then there's also Gateway Harbor.
Yeah, Gateway definitely is one of the special taxing districts, and the Covington maybe as well. I don't know the answer to your question. We'll have to research whether we can use.
Yeah, because I'd much rather use the special taxing district monies if it's allowable.
Right, if we can identify that it's the special taxing districts, we will definitely use the funding out of the special taxing districts.
And that would reduce that would reduce our burden on our general funds.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think we're going to have to take a look into that in terms of how the special taxing district was initially set up and what the purpose of the funds was for. These special taxing districts were set up prior to this law coming into place and were originally designed for the ongoing maintenance of these facilities. What this work is really looking at is making improvements across the system to reduce the amount of nutrients going into the bay. So this is a project that was not what the initial special taxing district was designed for. So let us do a little bit more research before we get the definitive answer on that.
I would consider it heavy maintenance. Thank you.
Sorry, just to follow up also on this topic. So it was one of these ponds that was built by BSR last year, right? It was part of this project? Correct, okay. That one generated some feedback from the community, just concerns about the overall appearance of the thing. I know that you had a couple back and forth with a few of my constituents, George, over that. I just want to emphasize that with these, that we really do try and, you know, think a little bit about the appearance and, you know, maybe even throw in some extra dollars for beautification, putting a little foliage around them, because for a lot of residents, we're creating kind of this hole with a little bit of fencing, and they get annoyed, even though this is, you know, imposed on us by higher powers. So I just wanted to throw that comment out there, and I know that it's something you're thinking about.
And I'll double down on that, because the one that we're working on now is Spangler, and I've already got folks who are a little bit concerned about that too. And I think, you know, part of the problem is that these ponds are, you know, vintage Levitt ponds that are really just, at this point, tree growth. And people don't even know that they're actually part of the stormwater management system. So now all of a sudden you come back in there and you can find you can rip out all the trees. And then you come back and you got a hole in the ground and twigs around where before they had what appeared to be a kind of a nature area. But it has to be done. But to the extent that we can do something to mitigate the absence of those trees and the loss of the vegetation, that'd be great. Thank you.
Playhouse?
Yeah, Bowie Playhouse. You know, this was built in White Marsh in 1975. In FY20, we're going to put a new sanitary sewer connection in there and installed and replacing the existing septic system, and the fly tower roof will be replaced. Of course, you all know that we ran the sewer lines from down to that location, and so this is a culmination of that project. And if you look at page 238, you'll see that we list the the sanitary sewer project at $153,200, the roof replacement at $6,000, the fly tower roof replacement at $46,000 for a total of $205,200. No action on at the Bel Air Mansion, Bel Air Stable Museum, excuse me. That's been pushed out to 2020 in the interest of saving money. The Allen Pond Park, we're planning $722,000 worth of work, which will be phase 1, the amphitheater, restroom, parking improvements, permits and fees associated with it, $12,000. Construction of the administration, $100,000, and renovation of the synthetic field at $610,000 for a total of $722,000. That is our plan for Allen Pond.
Real quick, dumb question. We heard some presentations tonight and have talked before about some potential changes that it could impact Allen Pond Park vis-a-vis new facilities and constructions and parking lots. Do we need to consider switching around some of these improvements based on what could potentially happen there with regards to new recreational facilities?
Well, I think that would be premature until you all make a decision on what direction we're going to take at Allen Pond. All of these improvements are in the master plan, and I think people are expecting them also.
So like the one thing in 2020 that stands out is parking improvements. Is that something that might, is this anything that would be impacted by a redesign?
The concept that you saw for the approximately 48,000 square foot facility put where the ice arena was, it anticipated all of these improvements taking place.
It already did. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. We're ahead of the game. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. So, White Marsh Park, unless somebody else has something else about Allen Pond. White Marsh Park, we've planned $20,000 to go into this project this year, and that would be, these are trail management, correct me if I'm wrong, George? White Marsh Park, that $20,000 you mentioned?
For the pedestrian bridge.
Pedestrian bridge, yes, that's correct. That $20,000 is for the pedestrian bridge in the vicinity of White Marsh, which is a necessary construction project. The hike and bike, yes?
Pardon me, quick question also on White Marsh. Could someone get me kind of a summary on the information for the lease for what we have up at White Marsh for the Sport Fit? I don't have to have a copy of the actual lease, but just kind of a summary of the terms and where we stand in them.
We can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so hiker-biker trails, we've got $53,000 set out for that particular project. If you look at page 246, you'll see that we're planning to repair the East Coast Greenway, retaining wall, remedial repairs and assessment, and the Northview Drive Trail ramp replacement. All total, that's $53,000, and that's planned for hiker-biker trail maintenance in the city. The next one's the Bowie Ice Arena. We have no money down here. However, we did move the $25,075,000 cost of construction, move that forward to 2019 with anticipation of awarding the bid before the end of the year, fiscal year. We'll be opening bids in 7 days or something like that. April 14th, we're going to do that. So that's the reason why we have those numbers in that way. Pope Creek Park, there is no funding associated with this project this year. As a matter of fact, everything is pushed rather far out for this park. Church Road Park, there are some internal drainage issues in the fields. That's been moved forward from 20 to 21, and to save money for other things in our budget. Bel Air Mansion, there's a $75,500 expense in that particular project, which is a renovation of the south stairs on the exterior of the building. That'll be $75,500. The other amenity that we have that's listed here is the Bowie Golf Course. We've got $150,000 programmed here. Course improvements and implementations. Also, we have We have employed a consultant to help us identify, help us determine what we can do to bring this golf course back to its former status. As you know, a couple of years ago, the organization that was managing it for us, we discovered that they had not maintained the golf course as they were required, should have, and they could no longer pay us the lease payments. And so at some point, we're going to be at a decision point whether what to do with the golf course, but we want to know first what it will take to bring it up to standard or not. So that's what's going on there. Under public art, there's a $25,000 set aside there for an outdoor sculpture near the ice arena when we build it. Blackstock Park, there's $35,000. I remember that from last year. Those are the fence extensions, and that's back in the budget. It was removed last year, and that's a service amenity. The next is the Bowie Heritage Trail. We have $919,000 set forth for that. If you go to page 262, we're going to do stormwater management installation at Huntington South Park as required for 12th and 10th Street trails for $34,000. And the 10th Street Park construction is scheduled for $885,000, which will certainly be an added amenity to that part of town. But Bowie Railroad Museum, there's no monies for that. That's also, we deferred that project until we have more revenue. Glen Allen Park.
Pardon me,
Yes.
quick question. There seemed to be some concern over confusion about whether something was included in the Railroad Museum, whether it was truly in the Heritage Trail. Did you follow that discussion point from Mayor Allen in the earlier session?
Yeah, we'll fix the wording on the Bowie Railroad Museum. Originally, the two projects were going to be constructed together. We've split them apart for funding reasons. The language is not correct in what we've wrote, so we'll have to fix that in the final budget.
Excellent, thank you.
Following up on that real quick, was it the case that there were permits specifically related to the museum railroad improvements that we already have and could potentially move forward on?
The permit package was submitted by our consultant as a single giant project with both pieces together. The railroad museum side had very little pieces that needed any county permits. So, you know, we haven't lost anything, if you will.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Glen Allen Park is a really nice park. 9 acre park with 2 tennis courts, a softball field, soccer field, youth soccer field, and a children's play area. We deferred the renovation of the playground to next year to save money, but we're planning to do that in 2021 for $175,000. The next one is of course, the future indoor sports facility we talked about tonight. We have no money set aside for that. You all gave us $100,000 we spent $31,600 on the feasibility study. And that concludes the review of the CIP. The rest of our water system issues, and we'll cover that another time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. City Manager.
I enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun. Mr. Mayor, that concludes what we're scheduled to do tonight.
I'm sorry?
Well, sorry, one more thing, yeah.
163 and 68.
We're not going to do 163? Did you say we're
What's that?
163, this is the capital projects fund.
Okay. Oh, this is
just an overview of the general government side of the capital projects.
Oh, okay.
The water and sewer side, we'll cover that when we are
Right.
reviewing water and sewer. Page 163 is just a summary of where the funds are coming from. For FY20, we're going to use $329,000 of the appropriated fund balance. We'll get $2 million $2.9 million from the general fund transfer. Intergovernmental funds will get $1.9 million, and other revenues will get $355,000 for a total of $5,561,600. Page 164 is just a detail of where the money is coming from and what projects the money is being spent on. We just covered that in some great detail, so I won't belabor you with that. But this is a depiction of where the funds are coming from for FY20.
Any question on revenue estimate? Nope. Mr. Gardner.
I love you calling my name, Mr. Mayor. I'd like the motion to adjourn.
Second by Dr. Trout. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mr. City Manager. Good night, Sally.
Good night, Mrs. Calabash, wherever you are.
Yes.